Welcome, everyone, to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is Dr. Lauren Chase, right? I got the name right,
You got it. You
right?
got it.
She's a licensed mental health counselor specializing in virtual therapy for high achieving women in North Carolina, South Carolina, Idaho, and Florida. Dr. Lauren helps women who feel overwhelmed by expectations, family roles, internal pressure, and external stressors find steadiness, reclaim their energy, and rediscover what truly matters. Dr. Lauren, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, Dr. Lauren, tell us a little bit about yourself. What was that journey like to become a licensed mental health counselor? What was that aha moment for you to get into this field?
Yeah, so I always wanted to give back to people. That was like my big thing was like, how can I do something that I can make money from, obviously live my life, but also see that benefit that other people have. And so therapy is a really nice piece where you see the difference you make in people's lives every day. So it's really nice to be able to say, hey, I did something at the end of the day and I made a difference in people's lives.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, cool. Listen, I've been wanting to have you on because today the topic is setting boundaries without guilt. And this has been like a touchy subject for me over the last pretty much all my life.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about this. Can people set boundaries without feeling guilty? I'll
I
be the
think,
first one to. Sorry, I
yeah.
didn't mean to cut you off. Mine was more financial boundaries, but we'll get into that later. But I'm just saying, can people really set boundaries without feeling guilty and without being shamed into doing what the other person wants?
Yeah.
Does
I
that
think
make
it's
sense? Yeah.
hmm I think it's totally possible. And I think the piece is it's hard. I think when we go into dating and like relationships, we bring a lot of our stuff from childhood there, right? I always, the first thing I ask my clients when we're talking about navigating dating relationships is like, what was your parents' relationship like? And what did you see growing up? Because we take that into our relationships. If our parents had poor boundaries, then we're going to have poor boundaries in dating. And figuring out like where did these boundaries come from? What are normal and healthy boundaries that we can have for ourselves? So I think it's definitely possible to set boundaries without guilt. I think it just takes practice and like really understanding what are our boundaries and where do they come from?
Mm. Because like I said, I realized this was maybe 6, 7 years ago, and I realized, and somebody had mentioned this to me, that I had personal boundaries. I still did whatever I wanted, but
Hmm.
financial boundaries, that was a different story. Like I always
Yeah.
felt I had to help. And 9 out of 10 times, Dr. Lauren, I got screwed. I got screwed
Yeah.
over. And it wasn't until that last time, which was, I think, the spring of 2020.
Hmm.
And I remember taking the LIR from Long Island in New York
Hmm.
back to Manhattan. And I'm just sitting there and just thinking, I'm doing the same patterns over and over again, and it's not
Hmm.
working. So
Yeah.
it took a while. I started reading, I started looking at YouTube, and just started focusing on myself for that rest of the year to, like, say no without feeling guilty. That's what I'm saying. If we get shamed into it, then we back down, and then we're like, okay,
Hmm.
I'll do it. But then we feel miserable.
Yeah.
We're not ourselves. We're people pleasing. Is that in the realm of not setting boundaries? We're trying to people
Yeah.
please. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you think of dating relationships, right? You think about that first date. You're navigating boundaries right then and there. Are we gonna get pick that person up? Is that something they feel comfortable with, or is that a boundary? Where are we gonna go? Are we gonna meet somewhere in between? Are we gonna meet somewhere where one partner is? And so we're already like practicing setting boundaries there of like, are our boundaries compatible? Because some people are like, I'm not comfortable being picked up, or I want someone to come to where I am and maybe that's a boundary for the other person is I don't want to drive that far. And so we're already navigating so many boundaries, just like setting up that first date.
I see now in the dating, whenever I'm doing research about any type of
Hmm.
dating topic I want to talk about, and I see some of the outrageous demands that some people have.
Yeah.
They're reading off a list now. This is their
Hmm.
boundaries.
Yeah.
Um, and I just see that the dating market, in this day and age, what you call modern dating,
Yeah.
Gen Z dating, is so fractured because
Hmm.
I'm again, I'm reading men don't want to go into into speed dating, or they don't want to go to singles events anymore. So you'll see like 90%, 95% women and a few guys going. Because of these tight boundaries or these uh demands, is the dating pool just is shitty for lack
It's
of a better
hard.
word?
It's so difficult. And I see people, and even it's been many years since I've been dating, but when I was, it was a lot of, people had these certain demands, right? And people had certain expectations. And we can be surface level all we want, but really, what is the core of a relationship? And like going back to that piece of like, what are your core values and do they align with mine? And I think a lot of times we forget that in dating because we're all in surface level up here. What do you do for a living? What do you look like? Right? How successful are you? How attractive are you? But like, what about that deeper stuff of like, what's most important to you? And why does that matter? And how do you, talk about those things with another person and get to know them and figure out like, are our values compatible at all?
That is so true, Dr. Lauren. It's not even the character of the person that counts anymore. It's all about, like you said, the status of the man. What can he provide? Can he do this for me? A, B, C, and D. And even some of the guys I seen, their boundaries are going out the window because if they see a woman dress a certain way, they're gonna go after them. Or if they don't go dress a certain way, they don't care. It's so different now compared to like even 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Are we to blame social media for these demands?
I think it's a lot of social media, and then I think it's also a piece of like the apps and what that's come to for people, right?
Mhm.
You think about it like the apps weren't here, let's say like, I don't know, I feel like the apps came into fruition like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And like before then, you didn't have that, but now you can swipe, swipe, swipe. You can talk to somebody in across the country, you can talk to someone down the street, but you can just swipe left, and then you're going to see another person. The accessibility factor and the addictive factor, I think, of being able to just swipe, swipe, swipe and find that perfect person you can filter by so many different things. I mean, you think about like you can hand select exactly what you want, which can be helpful, but also dangerous at the same time.
Talk more about that. How can it be when you mean by dangerous? What do you mean? What do you mean by dangerous? Like
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
Oh,
Doctor.
no,
Yeah, go
go
ahead. Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it can be to a point of like, we're trying
Sorry.
to like make this perfect person, but
Ah,
nobody's perfect, right? We're setting up unrealistic expectations. It just doesn't exist. And we want someone that's a certain height, a certain job, a certain religion, a certain, physical characteristics, right? We're trying to set up this like perfect ideal person, but is anyone ever going to fit there? Does that actually exist?
yeah, it's funny that you said it because I saw a podcast today, and a young lady was reading off like a 20-point checklist that
Hmm.
she wants to got her next boyfriend to meet, and I'm like, Jesus, he can't breathe then because it just doesn't align with her if with her goals. And like you said, there's no one's perfect, and the same thing with some guys. So I don't want to just pick on the women, but some guys that I know personally, they have a checklist, and I'm like. I mean, dude, you're 55 and talking about dating a girl that's 35, and you want her to do this, this, and this. You got to be realistic there, buddy. You're going to have to go
Hmm.
after your age or older. Um, so how do we set boundaries then? You meet someone,
Yeah.
do you set that at the beginning of the conversation through the phone? Hopefully not through text, but through the phone, or maybe you go out on the first date and you set the boundaries, or is that set up way before?
Yeah. So I think you set up boundaries in different points throughout the dating process,
Okay.
right? You could set boundaries at the beginning, like, hey, an easy boundary, I think that for people is comes to first mind, right? I don't want to date someone with kids. That's okay. That's an okay boundary. You're allowed to have that boundary.
Mhm.
That's an easy boundary. You can set that right away and see someone has kids, you can swipe left, whatever, move on.
Right.
But then there's also boundaries that you learn in the dating process of meeting someone, going out with them. Maybe political affiliation is something you're realizing that's really important to you. So you learn that and you implement that for the future. But I think it's both in the beginning, middle, and end of the process as we learn by experience. We're people. And so if we date somebody and we're like, ooh, I really didn't like, you know, how they talk to the waitress, or I don't like that they were a different political affiliation with me. That's okay. You're allowed to do that. You
Right.
learn that, and then you can implement that boundary for the future of I want someone who lines more towards me.
I like what you said though, because whether it's a political difference or dating someone with kids, and that's like the hot button topic
Mm-hmm.
of this generation. A man doesn't want to date a woman with kids because there's no benefit for him. And when I
Mm-hmm.
was their age, years ago, that never came up in our conversation. You
Yeah.
know, um, uh, women going on on girls trips, as they say. That's another hot button topic.
Mm-hmm.
Guys don't want their girlfriend to go on a, especially there's five single girls and you're the only one in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Guys don't want that. So it's just like so different now, and it seems that both sides are setting boundaries that um they cutting themselves out of a relationship before it gets
Mm-hmm.
started. Did that make
Yeah.
sense at all?
Absolutely. Yeah. Kind of cutting things off before it gets started because there's
Yeah,
never going to be that perfect person that meets everything. And we always can have non negotiables. That's totally okay to have a non
yeah.
negotiable. But the piece of like, are you cutting off people that could be really awesome but not meet this one piece? You got to pick and leave the rest sometimes.
So wow, I never thought about it that way. Because I always think that if you have a discussion, you talk about what you like, you don't like, and then from there you can
Hmm.
go on. But then you said something, if I heard correctly, that during the relationship, more boundaries can come along, right?
Hmm.
Hey, I don't like the way you talked to me when we were at the party or things like that. But I just think that too many people are afraid to get there because they don't want
Yeah,
to offend the other person. Does that
absolutely.
does that come into play a lot more when you coaching clients or talking to people about offending the other person, but you
All
feel
the time.
miserable? Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Please talk about that.
All the time. So, like, a lot of people are people pleasers, right? We want to make other people happy. We want to focus on them, but we're not focusing enough on ourselves of like what's important to me. If a client, if a person has a child and you don't want to date someone with kids, like having that conversation of like, what's that going to look like, your involvement in that child's life? Or if you're dating somebody who's, let's say, vaping, let's say that's, the big thing nowadays,
Yeah,
and that's not something you're okay with, have a conversation with them
right,
rather than kind of holding it in and saying, oh, I gotta like let this go. Is it important to me? Does it matter? That's okay. Then you need to talk about it. But letting it hold up and sit, within you and just fester and like you get to decide. And you can make that list. Like, what are the most important things to me? And what are things I can let go of? And like that's a valid list to make.
right.
I don't think that he's, she's, under 5'5" and she weighs this much. Like that's a little different. But if these are important things to you of, their, substance use, or something like that, or whether they have children or not, like that's a valid thing. And deciding that for yourself before you go into, you know, the navigating of the dating world can be really helpful.
So a suggestion would be maybe before you get back out in the dating market, just have your list already set.
Yeah.
Am I getting that
Yeah,
correct?
like
Yeah.
figuring out what those non-negotiables are. Is it religion? Is it having kids or not? Is it political affiliation? Like any of those are totally okay. And knowing for you what's most important to you. And I always ask clients this when we're like talking about identity work. If you are talking to someone and introducing yourself, what part of your identity is most important to you? I introduce myself and I tell people I'm a therapist because that's something that's really important to me. It makes who I am.
Right.
But if your religion is super important to you, then that's something important to look for. If, your political affiliation is super important to you, then make sure you find someone that aligns with that. That's okay. Or your interest or your hobbies or, having pets. Like, what is that one thing that you want people to know about you that's most important? And that's probably a good criteria to start with.
Wow. Yeah, again, something I never thought about, having your list right before you go on, if you get back out on the market. Does that work now with older people? They're set in their ways, they don't want
Yeah.
to go, they don't want to do certain things after 9 o'clock at night. They
Yeah.
want to go out at 5 in the afternoon,
Yeah.
something I do. So, when you work with clients or people that you might know in everyday
Yeah.
life, Do you work or do you know people in all different age ranges, and how are
Yeah,
their criteria to set boundaries? Is it
yeah,
different? I mean, it's different for every person, but I'm just talking
yeah,
about generation wise.
yeah,
Um, do the older people have more set in their ways than the younger people? Like they're more flexible? Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah. So I work a lot with women who are going through contemplating or post-divorce. So this is definitely something I talk about with clients. And I think it's the piece of what pieces of your marriage didn't work? And like, what are the pieces that you want to now bring into this new relationship that you're wanting to get in and not repeating the same patterns? Because that's what I often notice is like clients are repeating the same patterns over and over again. They're seeking, maybe it's a parental figure that wasn't good to them, or they're seeking some characteristic out in these people. They want to fix them, they want to help them. Like that's probably, you're going to keep getting the same result if you do the same thing. So I always like to focus with my clients, why didn't that relationship work out? What happened? And what's the theme among these relationships that didn't work out? Oh,
Mm.
okay, you were trying to fix them. Or, oh, okay, they were putting their children before you, or you weren't important to them, or they had kids and you didn't even like kids, whatever that may be. Look at those themes and acknowledge them and don't ignore them, and take them into this new experience dating again of like, okay, I keep dating, men who are unemotionally available, or men who, still have a super close relationship with their ex-partner, whatever that may be for you. Like, what is that theme? And work on breaking it.
Wow, I love, it's just recognizing patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um and I want to talk about people pleasing coming up next. But I'm telling you, Dr. Laura, I had such a issue with myself, and it just took like a almost like a punch in the face to wake me up to realize
Mm-hmm.
I was too much into people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially more on the female side. The guy side, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't care if the guys get mad at
Yeah.
me, whatever. But
Yeah.
it was more the female side and all that, and
Yeah.
I knew that stemmed from me being raised by my grandparents and not by my
Mm-hmm.
mom and dad. I mean, it took to my 30s to find out why, but
Yeah.
once that happened, I'm like, oh, duh,
This makes sense now.
it makes sense now. Yeah. So I just think because when they talk about people pleasing, the word out is that you're a phony. You're not really your true self. Do you see it that way, Dr. Lauren? That being a people pleaser, you're not yourself. You're just trying to be nice, and but inside, you want to say no to that concert. You want to
Yeah.
say no to hanging out after a certain time. Is are we faking it? If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, so in counseling we call it incongruence, right? Your internal experience versus your external experience, what you actually do. And
Mhm.
it sounds like there's an incongruence there often with people, especially people pleasers of like, I don't want to do this, but I feel obligated to do so. So I do it and then I resent it and then I feel frustrated and annoyed at someone. And they don't know that because I didn't express that to them. So how do I move towards being incongruent to being more congruent and doing these things that I want to do and being more comfortable saying no, using assertiveness skills and feeling comfortable that no is a full sentence or no thank you or I don't want to do that.
Okay, but is someone could think that, but
Mm-hmm.
can they fall back to that same pattern of being a people pleaser? Like I said, for me, Dr. Lauren,
Mm-hmm.
I had to sit down and I had to start reading. I had to just focus and start remembering some of the things some of my
Mm-hmm.
friends would say, you too nice,
Yeah.
you this and that. And it took pretty much the rest of 2020 and some of 2021 to
Mm-hmm.
realize, okay, you know what? If I say no, I'm not going to feel guilty anymore. That's just
Yeah.
me. I just feel that some people just still fall back into that because they
Mm-hmm.
don't want someone to get mad at them, or they don't want
Yeah.
someone to like be feel disappointed. And
Yeah.
I was in that space too. I don't want to disappoint someone. Now
Mm-hmm.
again, it took me almost a year and a half to realize, hey man, if I'm not happy, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I think it's a piece of like reflection of like, okay, why am I doing this? What's underneath this? Because it's not about the behavior. The behavior is just a symptom, right? What's really underneath that core that I'm trying to fulfill? And what's underneath that? What's that core belief that I have about myself? Like, we all have these different beliefs about ourselves. And so, do we only believe that we're going to be liked when we do something for someone? Or do we only believe we're worthy when we, produce something or we're serving other people or whatever that may be? Like, what's underneath the behavior? Because that's where we're going to get answers to patterns and whys and why we're people pleasing and all of that.
Wow, now that was deep. I love that. You know, it's like, what's the core of the issue there? Well, first of
Mhm.
all, Dr. Lauren, I know I could probably talk to you for another hour because I think this subject is so important. And before I let you go, anything you want to talk about? Anything else you want to promote? Any Oprah talks, TED talks? I mean, books coming out. You have all that. You know, should be in the future for you. Oh, did she freeze? Oh, Dr. Lauren, did I lose you? Ah, there you go. Oh, hello, Dr. Lauren, did I lose you? Hello, hello. Oh, I see you. Okay. Uh, did you lose your?
Yeah,
Oh, there you go. Hello.
yep.
Uh,
I don't know what's going on.
there you go. Okay. Yeah, no worry. I can edit this out. I'm glad this is not live. No, I was gonna say, do you have anything else you want to promote? Anything you want to talk about? Any Oprah Winfrey appearances, TEDx talk, books coming out? What's going on? What you got coming up?
Um, so I am Dr. Lauren Chase. I work with high achieving women in North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, and Idaho. I offer one-on-one virtual counseling for issues such as navigating dating relationships, anxiety, self-esteem, and boundary setting. And the best way to reach out to me is through my website, climbinghillscounseling.com.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that on the show notes. And before I let you go, one last word about setting boundaries without guilt.
Yeah, I think my biggest advice would be try it, see how it goes. And if it didn't go well, try it again. Life is an experiment, and you can always get another chance to try it again and do it differently.
No, I love that. Well, Dr. Lauren, again, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yep. Bye bye.